Hare Krishna, Prasad Prabhu, can you just make ISB the host or co-host? Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
If you can make ISB the co-host.
Yes, 1 second.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Udilo aruna purabhage Vijamani Gaura mani jage Bhakta Samuha Loyastane Gira Nagara Vraje Tatai Tatai Bajalato Gana Gana Tai Jagirayo Srina Dada Dada Sonaharanga Charanena Purabaje Mukunda Madhava Yadavari Bolore Bolore Vananda Bori Mukunda Madhava Yadavari Bolore Bolore Vandana Bori Micheninda Vase Gelore Rati Diva Vasa Shire Saje Hey Manadulaba Manavadeha Hayaki Karabaja Borakatea Ebena Bajile Achora Sutta Shamare Podiveraje Udita Tapana Oilasa Dinagelo Boli Oi Baby Asta Sabekin ho ebe alasha oi nabajori de raje Jivana nitya jana hosar Chahe nana vida vibarava Namashrai kori janatane tumi takoho apanakaji. Krishna nam shuda kori apan Juda baka didi no da pran. Nama bina kinchonaki chado bhuvana made. Jivera kalyana sadanakam jagate ashi maduranam. Avidyati miratapana rupe hide gagane viraje. Jiv jago Gaura Chandra Bole. Kota Nidra Jahomaya Pishachira Kole. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Baji Bobolia Eshe Samsara Vitare. Bulia Rahile Tumi Avidyarabare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tomare loite ami hainu avatara. Ami bina bandhu ara ke ache tomara. Ami bina bandhu ara ke আছে তোমার Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Eneci asaudi maya Nashivara lagi Harinama mantra lao tumi magi Harinama mantra lao tumi magi Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Thakur Bhakti Vinora Prabhu Charane Podiya Thakur Se Harinama Mantra Loilo Magiya Se Harinama Mantra Loilo Magiya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Sachinandana Gaura Hare, Jaya Sachinandana Gaura Hare, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Charitamrita Nitya Karapan, Jaha Hoite Premananda Bhakti Tapagyan. You're going to need the drum again, because we're going to sing this verse. This verse is sung in a meter similar to Sad Goswami Astakam. And it's a verse describing the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So on a day like Gaur Purnima, our only activity all day is begging, 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 and begging. Begging for the mercy of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So this morning, we're going to read a verse which is only talking about Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And as we go through this, someone can keep track of how many times the word daya comes in this verse as we go through. Helo dunita ke daya visadaya promila amodaya. Helo dunita ke daya vishadaya promiladamodaya. Samyach Chashravidaya Rasadaya Chikarpipot Modaya. Samyach Chashravidaya Rasadaya Chikarpito Modaya. Shashvat Bhakti Vinodaya Samadaya Madhurya Maradaya. Shashvat Bhakti Vinodaya Samadaya Madhurya Maradaya. Shri Chaitanya Daya Niditavadaya Bhuyara Modo Daya. Shri Chaitanya Daya Niditavadaya Bhuyara Modo Daya. Shri Chaitanya Daya Niditavadaya Bhuyara Modo Daya. O ocean of mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let there be an awakening of your auspicious mercy, which easily drives away all kinds of material lamentation by making everything pure and blissful. Indeed, your mercy awakens transcendental bliss and covers all material pleasures. By your auspicious mercy, quarrels and disagreements arising among different scriptures are vanquished. Your auspicious mercy pours forth transcendental mellows and thus causes the heart to jubilate. Your mercy, which is full of joy, always stimulates devotional service and glorifies conjugal love of God. May transcendental bliss be awakened within my heart by your causeless mercy. Purport. This important verse, Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Naktaka 8:10, specifically describes the Lord's causeless mercy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the most magnanimous personality of Godhead, distributes his causeless mercy in three ways to the conditioned soul. Every living entity is morose in the material world because he is always in want. He undergoes a great struggle for existence and tries to minimize his miserable condition by squeezing the utmost pleasure out of this world. But the living entity is never successful in this endeavor. While in a miserable condition, a person sometimes seeks the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But this is very difficult for materialistic people to obtain. However, when one becomes Krishna conscious by the grace of the Lord, the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord expands. And in this way, a materialist may gain freedom from his miseries. Actually, his mind is cleansed by his transcendental connection with the lotus feet of the Lord. At such a time, one is enlightened by the loving service of the Lord. There are many different kinds of scriptures, and by reading them, one often becomes puzzled. But when one receives the mercy of the Lord, his confusion is mitigated. Not only are scriptural disparities resolved, but a kind of transcendental bliss is awakened. And in this way, one is fully satisfied. Transcendental loving service of the Lord constantly engages the conditioned souls in serving the Lord's lotus feet. Through such fortunate engagement, one's transcendental love for Krishna is increased. One's position is thus completely purified, and one is filled with transcendental bliss accompanied by the spirit soul's jubilation. Thus, the transcendental cosmos mercy of Lord Krishna is manifested in the heart of the devotee. At such a time, material needs no longer exist. The lamentation that invariably accompanies material desires also vanquishes. By the grace of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position, and then the transcendental mellows of the spiritual world are manifested in him. One's devotional service then becomes firm, and one engages in the transcendental loving service with great determination. All these combine to fully awaken the devotee's heart with love of Krishna. In the beginning, a conditioned soul is bereft of Krishna consciousness and is always morose in his material activities. Later, by associating with a pure devotee, one becomes inquisitive to know the absolute truth. In this way, one begins to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. Next, by the Lord's grace, all misconceptions are vanquished, and the heart is cleansed of all material dirt. It is only then that the pleasure of transcendental bliss is awakened. By the Lord's causeless, by the Lord's mercy, one is completely convinced of the value of devotional service. When one sees the pastimes of the Lord everywhere, he is firmly situated in transcendental bliss. Such a devotee is relieved of all kinds of material desires, and he preaches the glories of the Lord all over the world. These Krishna conscious activities separate him from material activities and the desire for liberation, because at every step the devotee feels himself connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although such a devotee may sometimes be involved in household life, he is untouched by material existence due to his constant engagement in devotional service. Thus, everyone is advised to take shelter of devotional service, to become happy and liberated. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakoya Chakshurun Minitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Spam Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopeswa Gopika Kanda Radha Kantananostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sade Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvise Namaha Vansha Kalpa Tarumbistya Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukund Ghoradivachalam, Pangalangayate Girim, Ya Kripa Taraham Vande, Shri Gurum Dinatarinam, Durgame Bhademenantasya, Sakalat Paragatir Muhur, Swakripa Yasti Danena, Santa Sanfa Balambanam. Anandalilayamaya Vigrahaya Hemam Divya Chavisundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. In the world, there's many difficulties that the living entity has to go through while experiencing a material body. And these miseries are described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter. And he describes them in 4 categories: raga, bhaya, and krodha. That in the material world, one is overcome by raga, means an inordinate attraction for things which are diametrically opposite to who they originally are. And in the course of trying to pursue these things, Krishna explains what the outcome is. Yehi samsparsaja bhoga dukkha yoniya evate advayantanta kaunteya na te shuramate Buddha. That the living entity, who is by nature blissful, anandamaya vyasat, seeks for ananda in things which ultimately bring dukkha. This verse says, dukkha yonaya evate, that as soon as the living entity, their senses become titillated by the objects of the senses, instead of it producing happiness, it actually becomes the womb of suffering. And compounded into that experience comes various reactions for engaging in that activity. So it's not that you get the suffering that comes immediately, but there's reactions that simultaneously follow for the activities that you've engaged in. And this becomes, which Krishna explains as ashapashasthatayarbandha, that one becomes entangled in an endless network of hopeless hope. And in this thick net of material desires, it's very difficult for one to see who they are and what the ultimate goal of their life are, what the ultimate goal of their life is. Many people in this world are functioning under the basis that the ultimate goal of my life is to simply satisfy my senses and satisfy the senses of those that are around me. And this inevitably produces a great type of misery due to having those desires unfulfilled. So there's 3 types of misery which come within the realm of raga, which is soka, moha, and bhaya. Soka is lamenting about how we've failed to achieve our material desires in the past. And bhaya is, and moha is being illusioned about where we are in our current position and not knowing how to act within that current position to bring us the topmost happiness. Many people in this world, they find that their life revolves around working 8 to 13 hours a day, going home, eating microwaved food and watching television, and then going to sleep. And then having to do the same thing the next day. And to start off the day, they have to sit in 2 hours of traffic. At least that's the case in the United States of America. And I see the same thing here in India. People are entangled in an illusion of how they should act presently without understanding that there's unlimited potential for the living entity to experience or to achieve within this human form of life. But being overcome by raga, one's illusion in their present circumstances, and due to this illusion with how they're functioning in their present circumstances, they have a kind of a bhaya, fear as to what will happen in the future. And so due to this bhaya, they're constantly in anxiety as to what will happen next. Where will my kids go? Where will I go? What will become of everything that I own? And as the Bengali axiom says, which Srila Prabhupada would often quote, I built this house for my enjoyment and it's burnt to the ground. So this is the outcome for those who are entangled in bhaya. I mean, in raga, and then it comes bhaya. This bhaya, Srila Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita, is a kind of fearfulness of having a personal relationship with anyone due to the temporary nature of the relationships that we experience in this world. Everyone is cast under the illusion of dugalyam ashashvatam, in which everything is innately temporary. And due to that the temporal nature of things, and it being out of alignment with our original eternal nature, which is of eternity, one becomes very fearful to develop relationships with anyone in this world. And then when it comes to trying to achieve a spiritual goal, they become particularly anxious because to imply that there's relationship within the realm of transcendence, according to my material disposition being imposed upon that transcendental realm, I become very fearful that that relationship will also disintegrate in due course of time, just like the relationships I've experienced in this world. And then finally, we have Krota, which is someone takes up a type of spiritual practice, and in the process of practicing that spiritual process, they become completely flustered as to what the ultimate goal of life actually is. Bahu Shastre, Bahu Vakye, Chitte Brahma Hoy. Sadhya Sadhana Shreshthana Hoya Nishchai. That after studying so many scriptures and hearing so many people speak, I have no idea what the ultimate goal of my life is and what the ultimate sadhana is. And I can relate with this. Before I became a devotee, I was studying various spiritual books. I won't mention the names of the authors because I'm sitting on the Vyasa-san, but various teachers and people throughout the world who claim that they have a solution to the problems of life, but in the course of reading those books, one becomes extremely frustrated. I know His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj tells a story of that he was on a ferry in London or in the UK, going from, I think, Ireland to the UK, because everything is islands there. So he was going, and he was on a boat, and he was reading a book called Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And at the end of the book, it said, and then ultimately it was all one, and nothing ever mattered to begin with. And Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, after finishing this book and being utterly frustrated, threw the book off the boat and into the ocean. So this is the problem of material existence, is it produces three types of difficult entanglements that are very hard to extract ourselves out of, and we become complacent within that circumstance. Raga, Bhaya, and Krota. But as this verse is explaining that the first limb of, or the first phase of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is that one is relieved of these material miseries by being given a positive process. There have been many social reformers, and there's been many spiritual reformers throughout time that have come with a particular kind of philosophy and a particular type of way on how to bring peace to the world. But ultimately, those plans have been foiled. One such plan is, in America, we have a very famous person, you probably all know him, his name is Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was a civil rights activist in the 1960s and 50s, and he was very instrumental in helping bringing about equal rights for African Americans. Unfortunately, shortly after he was able to make significant progress in establishing freedom for African Americans, he himself was killed. And then generations after that, the African American community is still experiencing a lot of turmoil and difficulty trying to function within the society that it's integrated into after the death of Martin Luther King. And simultaneously, Mahatma Gandhi worked very hard to establish a type of spiritual reform, or at least a limb of a spiritual reform within the society of India. But that original cause, which was of a good nature, became overcome by a political drive. And so it ultimately ended with him being killed. And later on, it was noted by historians that it wasn't necessarily his nonviolence movement was what brought freedom to India. It was actually Subhas Chandra Bose taking up a violent opposition to the British, and that drove the British out after World War II due to the British infantry being completely dismantled by World War II. So, and then within the realm of spiritual life, we see there's many reformers who come to impose a path of renunciation. Lord Buddha came and he taught the path of ahimsa. But within the path of ahimsa, there was no sense of an ultimate reality. Rather, the ultimate goal is that you just annihilate yourself, and none of this actually matters. And then following him was Shankar Acharya, who established Advaita Vad, which is of a similar nature to Lord Buddha's philosophy, that ultimately this world is false, so therefore you should renounce it, and the ultimate goal, it lacks variety. So this is the predicament that the living entity is in, is that when it tries to function in the realm of social reform or political reform, although the living entity makes its best efforts to establish a utopia within the world, the living entity becomes ultimately frustrated and experiences this krodha. And then in the course of trying to engage in a spiritual process, although one may be able to negate the suffering of this world, there is lack of positive engagement. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes and he gives positive engagement to the world through the process of Harinam Sankirtan. In the process of chanting Hare Krishna, one is able to experience a positive alternative to the life of Raga, Baya, and Krodha. So by establishing Harinam Sankirtan within the world, he's opened up the floodgates of love of Krishna. And he's done this through the medium of 5 teachings which he established within the world. Aradayo Bhagavan Vrajeshas Tanayasta Dhamma Vrindavanam Ramyam Kachidupasanam Rajurvadur Vargena Yakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pranamanamalam Premam Pumarto Mahant Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Tamanidam Tato Darona Paraha. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, besides these teachings, we don't accept anything else. So Mahaprabhu's 5 teachings are that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Eke Kamsam, Kalam Pumsam. Krishna's too, Bhagavan Swayam. That Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he's one's ultimate object of love, which is significant. Because in order for a living entity to feel satisfied in this world, they need a goal. If you notice, practically all endeavors that humans make is based on goals. If you ever have watched a soccer match, the whole point of the game is to get a goal, and whoever scores the most goals wins. In practically all sports and events and academic field and political field, they function on the basis of achieving goals. The problem is that these goals, they lack an eternal nature. And that's problematic for the living entity, because the living entity is by nature eternal. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaityanam Eka Bahunam Yoviridati Kaman. That we are all eternal fragments of a supreme reality, and there is a supreme conscious being who's maintaining that reality and is maintaining us ultimately and fulfilling our desires. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points to Krishna and says, this is your ultimate goal. And as Srila Prabhupada says, distress in life is due to lack of a sufficient goal. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points to Radha and Krishna, and he says, go after this, chase after this. This is the only thing worth achieving. Labhas sadurlabha idam bahusam bhavante manusyam arthadam anityam api hadira. That this life is temporary. Jeev jago, Gaura Chandra bole. Kota nidra jaho maya, pisa chira kole. This life is temporary, and for many, many lives, you've been sleeping on the lap of the witch called Maya, accepting this material body to be yourself. So now you've come to the human form of life, so what should you do? Manusyam arthadam anityam api hadira. Although this life is eternal, you should strive for the greatest goal, and that is the attainment of Radha and Krishna. And then simultaneously, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes out and says, Aradiyo Bhagavan Vrajeshas Taniyas Tadama Vrindavanam. He says the place of Krishna is non-different from Krishna. And this is also significant because as living entities, we need a place to identify with. We need a place that we can call home. This is why people invest tons of money into buying a home by which they can settle their family and have a place that they can call their own. Because as living entities, we need a place to call our own. And Mahaprabhu is saying, you can call Vrindavan your home. You can call this place your home, and you can hanker after this place. There's many stories of travelers who they've been on the road for many, many days. Anyone who is an international businessman, you know that when you're traveling the world, at some point you feel some type of separation, just wanting to be at home. Because as my Guru Maharaj says, on the road you get what you get, at home you get what you want. So we're all seeking after a home. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that Vrindavan is your home. So chase after that home, long for that home, feel wary to go back to that home. And Srila Prabhupada specifically called his magazine Back to Godhead, back home, back to Godhead. So we're all trying to go home, and our home is Goloka Vrindavan. And what is the type of activity that one should accept? Ramyam Kachidupasanam Rajuvadur Vargyena Yakalpita. The mood of service that's taking place in that realm of Vrindavan, which is of the highest nature, is the love of the residents of Vrindavan, particularly the cowherd girls of Vrindavan, the gopis. And they're existing in a mood of separation, vipralamba. They're constantly hankering after Krishna. And so in order to establish this truth in the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears with many associates. Vande Gurum Isha Bhaktam, Ishams Ishvara Tarakam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings all of his associates into this world. Associates like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Swarup Damodar Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Murari Gupta, and various associates who are eternal residents of Vrindavan. And they appear not in their siddha dehas, but they appear in their sadhana dehas to show how does one hanker after Vrindavan as a practitioner of devotional service existing within this material world. And so we see they spend their days and nights simply wandering, asking, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Hey Radhe Vrajadevi Ke Chalalite, Hey Nanda Sunao Kutao. Simply wondering, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And this is the essence of Gaura Bhajan, to be absorbing oneself day and night and crying for one's beloved Krishna. And this is the essence of the Sankirtan movement, is just simply crying and crying and crying, wondering, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Praying for that day when one can have union with their beloved again. And how often should one do this? Kirtaniya Sadahari. One should chant like this all the time. One should go on chanting like this all the time. And then finally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, someone could say, okay, all these things are nice, but what's the basis of it? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Premam Pumartho Mahan. The basis of all of this is the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is Nigama Kalpataru Galitam Phalam Sukhamukha Amrita Drava Samyutam Pipata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhurho Rasika Bhuvibavukaha. That the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the Vedic wisdom tree. And if you're confused about the different shastras that are existing within the world, Mahaprabhu comes out and says, you don't need to worry about all those other shastras. You can just focus on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And everything becomes clear by reading that Srimad Bhagavatam. And by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, one becomes blissful because they drink a kind of rasa, they drink a type of nectarian juice, which is completely satisfying to the heart. So Mahaprabhu establishes his first limb of mercy by establishing in this world a process of devotional service which negates the inherent suffering that comes along with identifying a material body, namely raga, bhaya, and krodha. And then he removes the confusion that comes from associating with various scriptures and various so-called holy people by establishing the Srimad Bhagavatam as the topmost pramana for everything in our life. We can take full shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then finally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he establishes that the ultimate goal of your life is prema pumartho mahan. The ultimate goal of your life is not simply establishing a life of sense gratification through kama, or a life of piety through dharma, or a life of material economic development through artha, or simply negating material existence altogether through moksha. But the ultimate goal of your life is positive service to the positive form through prema pumartho mahan. That prema is the ultimate goal of your life. And this is what satisfies the living entity. And this is the search, this is the quest of every living entity, is this quest for priti, this quest for love. And even in someone's quest to have material enjoyment, what's prompting it is this sense that I will experience love here. And even in the quest for trying to achieve a type of knowledge which can extricate oneself from the material world through a process of negation, there's a sense that this will bring me the ultimate love. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu opens up the doors of love of Godhead. He opens up the gates of Vrindavan, and he's inviting the entire world to come and enter into these pastimes by participating in his Sankirtan movement. And through that participation in the Sankirtan movement, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inundates the world with transcendental love of Godhead, which is the final phase of his mercy. The final phase of his mercy is he gives the world service, which is very important because we all need something to do. Yad pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya karma shrayam ugrantitam ugrayanti shantam tadvandarikta matayo yatayo pirutas shoto ganas tararanam bhajamvasu devam. That by getting this vilas from serving the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then the material desires of this world are eradicated and one is overcome with the desires for devotional service. And when one dives into the ocean of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement, Prabodhananda Saraswati explains, Yata yata Gaura parada vindaye videta bhaktim krita punya rasahi tato tato sarapati rikta kaksma Radhapatam Boja Sudamba Rasahi. By accepting devotional service which has been prescribed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his beloved associates, and one fixes themselves in this feeling that I'm a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and one takes pride in that I am a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. My identity has nothing to do with this world. Asango yamhi purushaha. But my only identity in this world is that I'm a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When one becomes fully fixed in this consciousness that I'm a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'm a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'm a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then the result is Radhapadam Boja Sudamba Rasahi, that one becomes overcome in the ocean of service to the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. So Lord Chaitanya is the combined form of Radha and Krishna. Krishna is experiencing a predicament because he's the ultimate enjoyer. Bhoktaram Yagatapasam. He's the ultimate enjoyer. And there's no enjoyer that's greater than him. But he's seeing that his associates in Vrindavan, particularly Srimati Radharani, is experiencing a higher mellow than him. So he wants to know, what is the love she's experiencing? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna comes in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accepting the complexion of Srimati Radharani. So the two have become one in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Jagadananda Pandit says one shouldn't think, did Radha and Krishna come first or did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu come first? Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a Swayam Prakash of Krishna, which means that they're non-different from each other. They're both eternally the supreme personality of Godhead. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is inconceivable to the minds of mundane scholars or philanthropists, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is bestowing a gift that no one in the world can possibly imagine. He is garlanding the world with the wreath of Prem Nam Sankirtan. He comes in the mood of Srimati Radharani, feeling separation from Krishna, and he chants this holy name. And in the process of chanting the holy name, he gives this holy name to the world. And although in every other Kali Yuga, Gaura Narayan may come, in this particular Kali Yuga where Krishna comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then the special benediction is that the holy name is imbued with Vraja Prem. And anyone who chants this holy name in a mood of desperation and a mood of purity can easily enter into the realm of Vrindavan free of charge. One simply needs to take full shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with complete conviction. And this is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming to give. He's coming to inundate the world with Krishna Prema, eradicate material misery, nullify the confusion which comes from studying various scriptures, and give the entire world Krishna Prema. This is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this is what we're praying for today. We're praying for Lord Chaitanya's mercy to flood our heart and give us a taste for chanting, a taste for the Srimad Bhagavatam, an opportunity to serve the Vaishnavas with full conviction. These three things are Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gifts. Nam Ruchi, Vaishnav Seva, what's the third one? Jiva Doi. Jiva Doi, Vaishnav Seva, and Nam Ruchi. If we can be blessed with these three gifts today, then we can consider our life a success. So today we fall at the feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu over and over and over again. And we pray for the opportunity to accept the gift that he's giving and simultaneously become empowered to go out and give this gift to the entire world and expand the Sankirtan movement unlimitedly for the pleasure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So those are a few thoughts that I had coming into today. So now we'll open it up for a discussion. It's 9:15, and Suvarna Gaura told me that we go till 9:30. So we'll stop at 9:30, but for 15 minutes, we'll have a discussion. And I say discussion because sometimes questions are scary. So you can ask a question, or you can give a reflection, or you can share your thoughts on what was said and just anything that expands the vibration. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Devavrata, we are very fortunate to have your association. Actually, on this auspicious moment, you have also appeared by bringing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings in a wonderful way. You have dawned on us, and so that's a great thing. Actually, you have said everything what is required. There is not much that we have to say. You have completely given the outline. What are the the do's and don'ts? That's it. It's for us to take it up in the right spirit and celebrate. That's it. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your time and effort and your energy. You have really enlivened us and given the right mood for the year ahead. Hare Krishna. Thanks, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I'm really amazed at looking at you, very dedicated and very knowledgeable. Because throughout my 17 years in Krishna consciousness, I had only heard that it's only during Srila Prabhupada's time that young Americans would become devotees, and that is not the case now. But I'm completely amazed that you have so nicely taken up to Krishna consciousness. I'm very grateful to you having come here and enlightening us. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guruji. Thank you for wonderful class. So you mentioned about that verse, Yata Yata Gaura Padaravinde.
Yes.
So what can be the negative side of following? And in the sense, how can we make mistake in following that?
Yeah, one can make a mistake by thinking that they're prematurely qualified for something that's above their head. There's a principle in the Srimad Bhagavatam which says, Sway Sway Adhikarya Nishtas. What's the second half of it? Sway Sway Adhikarya Nishtas. I'm forgetting the second part, but I know the English. That's okay. The English is that the perfection of religion is just to act according to your qualification. So there's a chance that in the course of taking shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, we can become waylaid by trying to take up a type of sadhana or process of hearing and chanting which is beyond our adhikar. So there's a verse that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati recited, Yata Yata sorry, what's the word? Pujala rag pata gaurava bhage, that we carry the path of rag on our head. So there's a chance that one being premature in their Krishna consciousness could hear about the land of Vrindavan and the activities that are going on there and try to prematurely expose themselves to that without having sufficient purity of heart. So this Pujala Rag Pata Gaurava Bhage was written by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in order to counteract nefarious persons which were misrepresenting the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the school of Prakrita Sahajya. Prakrita Sahajya means that which is innately transcendental. Sahajya means that which is transcendental. Prakrita means to bring that which is innately transcendental down to that which is material. And so one tries to imitate the activities of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So this Pujala Rag Pata Gaurava Bhage means we worship the path of Raga on our head. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that anyone who worships Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the word of Dasya, in due course of time will automatically begin to serve Radha and Krishna in the mood of Madhurya. He explains this in the Navadvip Dhamma Mahatmya. So we should understand that Gaura is our prospect is through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Our prospect is through Gauranga. That we don't need to prematurely jump to the stage of worshiping Radha and Krishna in the mood of Rag. Rather, we should accept the process of Vaidhi, which is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then through the process of hearing and chanting, Kirtana Prabhave Smarana Swabhave, that through the process of chanting in Prem Nam Sankirtan, through pure chanting, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will enter into the heart of that living entity and reveal the path of Rag automatically. So one doesn't need to act in a way which is beyond their adhikar, but rather one should simply focus on serving the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and purifying their chanting through avoiding the 10 offenses and simultaneously serving the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu practically through distributing literature, preaching, prasadam distribution, namahatas, bhakti vrikshas, whatever it may be. But one should accept some practical service in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. And the automatic byproduct of that is that in due course of time, one develops a natural attraction for the land of Vrindavan, in which one's heart has been purified fully. Cheto darpana marjanam, bhava mahadvag agni nirvapanam. There's no question of one superimposing material misconceptions upon the realm of transcendence, but one being solidified in tattva and fully established in one's relationship with Krishna after a prolonged process of hearing and chanting in the association of advanced devotees. All these things are revealed automatically through the purified chanting of the holy name, not through an artificial imposition upon the mind, which will actually create misery and actually will help one degress in the process of spiritual life due to committing offenses to the realm of transcendence. So we should act according to our qualification, and we should stay in the association of advanced devotees who have solidified themselves in tattva and who have purified themselves through the pure chanting of Shuddha Nam.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the wonderful class. Prabhuji, you were mentioning one of the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was that Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost Praman, and also by his own examples, he also demonstrated in his association with the other Pandit, he discussed Srimad Bhagavatam. But whereas we now our acharyas, we see that our acharyas give topmost position to the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yes.
So
why is that?
Yeah.
Wonderful question. Amazing question. And it's something I wanted to speak on today, but I couldn't fit it into everything. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is in a unique position because if you read Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam, his introduction is a biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he spends his entire introduction emphasizing one principle, that we can't understand the Srimad Bhagavatam without Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And why can't we understand the Srimad Bhagavatam without Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Because the Srimad Bhagavatam is dharma protitakaitavo niparamo near matsaramam satam. It's meant for those who are near matsaram, who are completely free from envy. And being free from envy means being established in Krishna Prema. So this means that in order to study the Srimad Bhagavatam, one needs to have Krishna Prema, because it's for the Rasika Vaishnavas. So in order to have Krishna Prema, one has to take shelter of Prem Purushotam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita gives a living example of the Srimad Bhagavatam through the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. One gets to practically see the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And what is the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Savai pumsam paro dharmo yator bhakti or hoksage. Ahoitikiya pratiyata yeya mam suprasidati. And beyond that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is specifically meant for engaging in devotional service. But beyond that, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master Ishvara Puri gave the following verse, which he said is the most important verse of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Evam vrata swa priya nama kirtya jatanu rago chuta uchar hastiyato rotiti roti gayan unmadava ninlanti loka bayaha. This verse is describing the level of a devotee who has gone past the stages of sadhana bhakti and bhava bhakti and has entered into the divine realm of prema bhakti. So Srimad Bhagavatam is specifically meant for those who have prema bhakti. But if we're lacking prema bhakti, how can we study the Srimad Bhagavatam? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and gives Krishna prema so one can read the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he does this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because by reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, one's heart becomes softened by seeing the example of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by seeing the devotion of Murari Gupta, by seeing the devotion of Swarup Damodar, by seeing the devotion of Rupa and Sanatan and Raghunath Das Goswami, by seeing and hearing about how the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would cry in Kirtan, they would be trying to drink his tears or drink the foam that was coming from his mouth. And Kali Krishnadas would take the remnants of all the Vaishnavas. When one hears about devotees who are situated in Prema Bhakti, then what happens is that rubs off. Srila Prabhupada would always give this example of the rod and the fire. So when one absorbs their mind in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, then that consciousness, which was previously existing in a material consciousness, by association with the spiritual vibration of the personalities and associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then one's consciousness becomes fire-like with Prema Bhakti. And then through that fire-like Prema Bhakti, one is able to enter into the Srimad Bhagavatam, not just as an academic study, but as a fully transcendental experience by which one actually enters into the pastimes that are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manisham deham ashrita bhajate tadrasi krita yashrutva tat parovavet. That by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, the result should be that I want to enter into these pastimes. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita opens up the storehouse of love of Godhead, drowns the living entity in that storehouse, and then the living entity can go and read Srimad Bhagavatam in a mood of complete absorption and love. Uh-oh. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I have a request for a prayer from all the assembly of Vaishnavas. Nityananda Trayodasi this year in Mayapur, I made a vow in front of myself, in front of my spiritual master and all the assembled Vaishnavas in Srimad Bhagavatam class, to distribute 100 Chaitanya Charitamritas between now and June 8th. So I seek all of your blessings that I may become empowered to distribute 100 Chaitanya Charitamritas between now and June 8th for the pleasure of the Vaishnavas, Srila Prabhupada, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So please pray that this sankalpa and this vow can become fructified. We have a mission in America to popularize the mass distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I have a personal mission to popularize the distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita to university students and college students. So anyone who agrees that this should be done, please say Hare Krishna. So I seek your prayers that I may become empowered to execute this vrata.
Hare Krishna,
By
Prabhuji,
June
Dandavat
8th.
Pranam. Yeah.
Why June 8th? Because that's when all the schools close. So as soon as I get back to America, I start traveling Sankirtan on March 20th. And then I have until June 8th to distribute 100 Chaitanya Charitamritas. It's not just myself, it's my traveling party, which is yet to be named. It's in the process of receiving a name from my spiritual master. But it's not just myself, it's my whole traveling party. We have a goal to distribute 100 Chaitanya Charitamritas between March and June. 3. We have a van. We have like a bus, a Mercedes 3500 Sprinter. So we can fit about 50 Chaitanya Charitamritas in there. And then we'll bring that with us on our first trip. And then we'll make an order and have 50 more shipped into us once we finish the second 50. We're likely going to be sleeping on top of boxes. Yes, please.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. I heard you saying we shall take a practical devotional service. Devotional service is always practical. Why there is an emphasis on practical devotional service?
Because there's a way in which people can, like I was saying earlier, without having the proper qualification, go into seclusion and simply try to chant without being sufficiently purified. So in order for the Sankirtan movement to be accessible for us and others, there's a need for us to go out and give Krishna consciousness to others. And the process of Sankirtan is particularly purifying, and it gives one the ability to have a practical engagement while simultaneously become purified of the anarthas, which is preventing them from chanting purely. So I say practical devotional service because our mission is a preaching mission. And if those who are unqualified simply go into seclusion and try to chant, it will create harm for themselves and harm to others. So Prabhupada says that Jiva Himsa means to stop the preaching activities of the Sankirtan mission. So I emphasize practical devotional service because there's a way in which we could minimize the value of preaching activities and simply go into seclusion in various ways. So we should try to avoid that as far as possible and make it known to the world that we're here to create a revolution. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We're very fortunate to have the association of His Grace Devavrata Prabhu for these many days. And he's traveling to a few more places, and also hearing from him with so much of vigor, and just hearing his kirtan only, even the sleeping person also will jiva jago, really he will get up, and he has to get up. There is no other way. So we thank him for waking up the sleeping souls, or the bringing up the passion that how today is the day when we should be completely prostrated in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and beg for his mercy. And Prabhuji shared from this, the wonderful verse where 12 times the Daya comes in the sun. So let us express our gratitude to His Grace Devavrata Prabhu by chanting Hare Krishna mantra once. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And hope and pray that whenever he comes to India, he can consider coming to Bangalore and also enthusiasts. And he, different devotees have different passions or like no want to this one. So his inclination for book distribution yesterday also for almost 45-50 minutes he wanted to go. Then seeing his enthusiasm, 3-4 more devotees they also became eager and they also went and had a distribution income. So thank you very much, Prabhu. And we hope and pray that may your desire to distribute 100 Chaitanya Charitamrits, like now may Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empower to distribute more and may add one more zero and more souls like now from the universities and colleges of America become devotees, and that's what was the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and also the Acharyas. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Revol. So just waiting for this. So Jagannath Baldev Sudaramai ki jai, Nrsimhadev Bhagwan ki jai, Gaura Nitai ki jai. And Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So that was a wonderful class, very inspiring.
Then we'll disconnect.
Yeah, we can disconnect now. So offering prayers to all the Vaishnavas, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavani Vaishnavi Namo Namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. So I'll end the meeting now.